Hello and welcome back to the gutter, the Grindhouse gutter. I'm Josh from the All American Spook Show, and I'm joined here with other Spook Show members, Donnie,
Yo.
Tiana, and the Professor Smoke.
Hey.
What's up?
And the whole premise of Grindhouse Gutter is we let the professor select a movie that would have played back in the old Grindhouse theaters or drive-ins, the B movies and of that ilk of the 70s and 80s, right? I guess into the 60s. We've kind of been all over the place, really, but um, so every month we let him pick it, and then we let him give his Grindhouse Gutter rating, and then whatever genre movie rating that it falls under. And so, what have you brought for us this month, Smoke?
All right. Well, yeah, this month it's take your pick as far as the title goes. The most famous or whatever. The one that's most known for this movie is Five Elements Ninjas, Five Elements Ninja or Five Elements Ninjas. I mean, I've seen plural, I've seen it singular. Also, Chinese Super Ninjas and just Super Ninjas. So, so it's gone by a few titles. It's from 1982, and it's a little bit later into the kung fu spectrum. I mean, most people, the 70s were kind of like the peak, I guess you'd say, era of Shaw Brothers and of kung fu grindhouse cinema in general. But yeah, this one's a little bit on the other end of it, 1982, and it's from a director that was directed the last movie we watched that was a kung fu film on Grindhouse Gutter. That was Five Deadly Venoms. Cheh Chang, the director, directed this movie as well, and it is considered one of the those that saw that episode. If you haven't seen it, you can always go back and check it out. Talked about the Venom Mob, which were the actors that were in Five Deadly Venoms who went on to sometimes be all together in other movies, or there would be some combination of the Venom Mob actors in other movies. This one only has one, and it's Lo Meng, who played the Toad in Five Deadly Venoms. So he's back in this movie. He's the only one of the Venoms that stars in it, but the director's Shang Chi, so same director as Five Deadly Venoms. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I've forgotten how much granted the blood is really super bright red. It's not necessarily the most realistic of gore and violence, but I mean it's the typical Shaw Brothers kung fu. When they did do a bloodbath type movie, it was this type of style, in keeping with things like, I mean, it's not Shaw Brothers and it's Japanese, but another one that we've done on here, Shogun Assassin. This one's maybe not quite to the highest to full on levels of gore that one did, because that was sustained over the course of pretty much the whole movie. This one comes in bursts at certain points, and there'll be dismemberments and blood splashing and spraying and all that type of stuff. So
yeah, especially in the end where you get that last.
Yeah,
about that last 20 minutes where you get little to no dialogue.
Yeah, it's just fighting and bloodshed.
Fighting.
Yeah, it's a nice climactic scene, that last 20 minutes or whatever. I mean, really, this entire movie, Chang Cheh directed it. You might argue that he did better movies script-wise back in the 70s. Five Deadly Venoms had a really cool script and a cool storyline to go with it. This movie just kind of like forgoes most of that and just sticks to a bare bones basic plot of this Chinese school versus this other Chinese school. The one school brings in ninjas to get an upper hand. Well, first brings in a samurai in this tournament or whatever. Later, they get this things, and the Five Elements ninjas are going to be visiting you or whatever. So then they send 10 of their students out to basically battle these ninjas. The ninjas slaughter the students all but one. Then the students learn ninjutsu themselves, become the Chinese ninjas, such as this Chinese super ninjas or whatever. And then they go and battle the ninjas again in their elements. Again, the Five Elements Ninjas title comes into play because of you got fire, you have air. No, not air. You have water, fire, earth. So most people think that when you think of the five elements, and then you think maybe air, but there's really usually four elements that are named. This movie kind of goes into elements based on not just air or like fire, earth, whatever, but like the periodic table, I guess, like, because there's gold element. One of the elements are gold. So, and then another element is wood, which, but
my personal favorite was the earth, where they just kind of mole hole down into the earth and then jump back out and stuff.
Yeah, that was cool because they would stab up when they first killed the original students from the Chinese school that were battling the ninjas. Their spears would come up out of the ground and stab them in the legs or in the crotch. Even it looked like very painful looking scenes. But
it gets that one dude in the crotch at least like 6 to 8 times, like where his intestines are hanging out from his pants.
Yeah, he steps on them when he's not. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And then later when the after the students from the Chinese school are taught ninjutsu and they go back and they're fighting these 5 elements ninjas, later the Earth ones is cool because they have these spears with stilts. This thing like pops down, and so they're able to stay up above the Earth, so that the Earth ninjas are trying to stab them from below. They can't get to them, but they have spears on the bottom of these stilts, so they're like stabbing into the Earth to the down into the Earth ninjas, and little geysers of blood spray up and all that stuff. So that was a pretty cool scene. And actually, like I said, that whole climactic battle at the end is pretty badass because it's them defeating the 5 elements ninjas in their element against them with their own whatever. You saw them get killed earlier, the 10 Chinese students, and so now you see them countering all the moves that the 5 elements ninjas used to kill the Chinese students earlier in the movie. So the water ninjas, I remember that when they first got introduced, they were like on rafts, so they were just like swimming real fast on rafts with spears or whatever. And then they had the little reeds underwater so they could breathe and like be slightly invisible, like you say. But then, like later on, whenever these ninja trained Chinese students are battling them, and they're like they catch them in that big fishnet thing, remember at the end, and then they're like just stabbing the shit out of them in the net. There's blood all in the water.
Literally, just like got them halfway in the water, and just like 4 dudes with poles just stabbing the hell out of them.
Gigging frogs or something. There's
some pretty brutal stuff in here at times, but like I also think like with a lot of these type of movies, you get the creative editing and the setup or the reverse shots where they kind of they all jump backwards at the same time and land, like
or like where they were supposed to be on the ground and then flipping back up into a tree, but of course they're in the tree limb and then flipping to the ground and then reverse that
just back in the tree.
Yeah.
You get those it's about what would you say 75% grounded in reality, and then out of nowhere there's these supernatural elements just kind of out of left field in a lot of ways that are completely left unexplained, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like, to me, it's sort of like Shaw Brothers, when they started out, they were doing what's that word, wushu, I guess, which is kind of like the wire work, flying, and things that are more fantastical. And then in the 70s, they kind of settled down into a bit more of a realistic style of kung fu and martial arts and choreography, where they weren't really doing high wire flying stuff and all that for most of the time. I mean, there would be an occasional movie that would have that wushu type style in it, but for the most part in the 70s, they would be a little bit more realistic. And then later on in the 80s, again, they kind of went back towards that more high flying supernatural type things going on, like in this movie when there's a lot of wire work in this movie with the ninjas, probably because of the ninjas. They're like flying through the air and doing all these different things in their particular elements or whatever.
Well, Donnie, did you have a chance to watch it?
I actually watched the first about 30 minutes, and then I caught the last 10 minutes.
Really, that's all you need, to be honest with you. I mean, like,
yeah,
there's not, like Smoke said a minute ago, it's not a deep plot movie. So,
no.
But like, if you just want nonstop, martial arts action,
that final fight was something else, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that final 20 minutes, I'm telling you, it's like it never stops, and there's literally like a paragraph, worth of dialogue in the last 20 minutes of this movie. There's almost none. Another 10-minute long like massacre in the middle too, where they go back and just wipe out the school and the master and everything.
Yeah. And there's a little bit of I don't know if you would really call it a love story, but there was a little bit of something going on there, or whether slightly, not real,
some kind of awkward attempt at romance. Yeah,
it was like just kind of like tacked on, like we'll go to it occasionally, but mostly no, it'll just be fighting.
There has to be some romance here, okay,
we'll throw something in there. I mean, but yeah, like
I do love that though when the final scene with him and her. And we don't want to give away direct spoilers, and then what happens with that? And then he's like, "I made the right choice, or did I?"
Yeah. After he's
That's a hell of a time to question it now, buddy.
It's like maybe I was a little rash.
He's like, "Oh well," and then goes on like a 20-minute,
Yeah. So.
Well, it was entertaining though. It was another good choice. So I
Yeah.
do two separate ratings here. You give the Grindhouse rating, which is a 0 through 10. Like we always kind of put it, the Grindhouse feel, all that encapsulates what you think a good Grindhouse flick is made of. So what would you give it?
I mean, this is a classic for people who love kung fu movies and love Shaw Brothers, and it's very high on the level of violence. So as far as the Grindhouse rating on this movie, I mean, you got excellent choreography, you got weapons, plenty of hand to hand, hand to foot, foot to foot, plenty of martial arts choreography as well as the weapons choreography. So
ass.
You got a kung fu and ninjutsu, so you got all these different, it's a smorgasbord of things going on. So it's not just one style, or it's not just, there's blood and violence, gore, and all this stuff going on. I think I'd give it a 10 on the Grindhouse rating, because it is up there as far as just nonstop fighting and violence, through the whole thing, and plenty of bloodshed. Even if the blood is, very much bright red and not very realistic, it's not really. They weren't really going necessarily for realistic gore. It's anybody who watches these movies know it's hyperbolic. It's like Shogun Assassin, it's artistic more so than it is trying to be realistic or whatever. So
it's that bright red, like almost the color of your shirt, red.
Yeah, like paint, like red paint.
Yeah. So what we do here is you give out a rating 0 to 5. So it's basically a star rating, except we don't give stars. We give out whatever genre of movie it is. Like if it's action, we give out choppas. Exploitation, we give out X's. So with this one being a kung fu martial arts flick, you're going to give out shurikens.
Yep. And I'm rating this, of course, the Grindhouse rating is different than our regular podcast episodes or whatever. It's usually a little bit more elevated as far as the level that you would have on these movies versus if you were doing something for the actual podcast. So also, though, that being said, I think I have to rate this based on other kung fu movies and things that I've rated in here. And Shogun Assassin is one of my personal favorites. That movie is also, like I said, it was very hyper violent and lots of action and everything going all through that movie. That one I put in a little bit higher class, I guess. Not as higher class, but I mean, I gave it 5 shurikens, I believe, when I did that one.
You gave that one 4.5 shurikens.
Oh, I gave that one 4.5? Okay. Well, well, then I'm going to have to drop this one back a little bit, and I'll give it 4.25, because I was going to rate it against that. I like Five Deadly Venoms better as a movie, because as we said in that one, there's more of a storyline going on in that one. Now, this movie here is more of a Grindhouse movie, and the Grindhouse rating will show that. But I think as the script and the storyline is definitely stronger with a movie like Five Deadly Venoms versus this one.
Well, what are you going to bring us next month here on the Gutter?
Next month, we're going to go dipping back into the horror genre, and back into specifically Italian horror, and even more specifically Lucio Fulci's the New York Ripper from 1982, much like this Five Elements of Ninjas was also a 1982 film. So yeah, this is a sort of a slasher meets giallo in the mean streets of New York. So
well, you rarely ever go wrong with that. So
no, this one is this is an interesting one. We'll get to it. It may not be the greatest Fulci film. It may not be the greatest giallo, but it's got a lot of things going for it. One thing that well, you'll see it if you haven't seen it. I think Donnie said he's seen it.
Yeah.
One thing that, like, just out of left field in this movie, and I don't know if Donnie remembers what it is. If so, hopefully don't mention it here. We'll just wait for Josh to see it, because it's a left field kind of moment. You're like, what's the?
Yeah, just keep it to yourself, and we'll find out next month together. So, that Five Elements Ninjas, we highly recommend, based on Smoke's ratings. So go check it out. It was available in a couple various places, and if you want to get ahead of the curve, go ahead and watch the New York Ripper for next month. So, also stick around here on the YouTube channel for Video Vortex and Hammer Horror and Order series. Those come out weekly every month. And of course, the All American Spook Show podcast comes out every Monday at 6 p.m. East, right here on the channel or wherever you get your podcast. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, Donnie, Tiana, the Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the Spook Show, and we will talk to you next month.